The storm clouds over the crash site were thick, hanging low like cold metal sheets pressed against the sky. Smoke rose from the broken alien shuttle, twisting into the air with a dull orange glow. In the middle of the scattered debris, Rian, a human engineer from a nearby outpost, dropped to one knee and brushed ash from his face. He had run through the forest as soon as he saw the explosion, hoping survivors were inside. Humans were not supposed to get close to alien military craft, but Rian had never cared about those rules. A life was a life, no matter where it came from. He stepped inside the cracked hull, holding a small, portable light. The air buzzed with unstable energy. Panels sparked. The floor was hot beneath his boots. Every step was dangerous, but Rian kept going. He heard a low groan somewhere ahead. It wasn't human. It had a sharp, warbling sound, a voice struggling to stay conscious. Rian followed the sound and finally saw her, an alien woman, tall and powerful, wearing a full battle armor suit that was glowing from overheating. She stood with her back against a support beam, gripping it for balance. Her armor had deep cuts, scorched edges, and smoking vents. Even from several meters away, Rian felt the heat pouring off it. He raised both hands slowly so she would not see him as a threat. She turned her head, her visor flashing faint blue. She tried to aim her arm cannon at him, but her arm shook too badly. Rian spoke in a calm, steady voice. He told her that he was not here to harm her. He explained that her armor's power core was failing. The warning lights on her suit were blinking red in a pattern he recognized: power coil meltdown. If she kept wearing the armor, the heat would rise until it damaged her body. It was already too close to the danger threshold. She didn't respond at first. Kethari warriors, the species she belonged to, were known for their extreme discipline and pride. Removing armor in front of an outsider was unthinkable. Armor was considered a second skin for soldiers of her rank. To take it off was to show vulnerability, but Rian could see she was barely standing. Her breath sounded uneven. Her legs were trembling. He took one small step closer and repeated his warning. She needed to take off the armor before it hurt her more. The alien woman's visor dimmed as she studied him. She didn't sense hostility. She sensed urgency, real, honest urgency. Her suit emitted a loud crackling sound, like a burning wire snapping somewhere deep inside. The heat near her chest plate increased further. She suddenly let out a soft, tired exhale. The tension in her shoulders lowered just slightly. Her visor slid up, revealing sharp silver eyes that glowed faintly. Her dark, patterned skin was marked with long streaks that seemed natural, almost like warrior stripes. She didn't smile with confidence. It was a small, weak smile, as if she had finally accepted that she had no strength left to pretend she was fine. Her voice came out low and soft. She said the main locks on the back of her armor had jammed during the crash. She asked him, almost reluctantly, if he could help unlock them. Rian stepped behind her carefully. He examined the alien technology. The lock system was complex, but his engineering instincts understood mechanical language better than words. He worked through the energy-warped metal, pressing hidden panels, twisting unfamiliar rings, and releasing air valves one at a time. Steam hissed out of small openings. The armor's inner seals unlatched with clunky metallic pops. Piece by piece, the heavy plates loosened. The shoulder guards fell with loud clangs. Then the chest plate released a large burst of hot air. Rian stepped back quickly to avoid getting burned. The alien woman inhaled sharply, as if she hadn't taken a proper breath in hours. Her knees weakened, and she almost fell forward. Rian caught her by the arms just in time. The remaining layer of armor was thin and flexible, but it was cracked in several places. When the last lock disengaged, the suit fell apart and dropped to the ground beside her. Without the armor, she looked different. Not weak, never weak, but more real, more alive. More like someone in desperate need of help. Her skin, marked with natural swirls, shimmered faintly under the emergency lights. Her breathing steadied, but her legs were still shaking. She leaned against the wall to stay upright. Rian placed a hand behind her back to support her gently. She tried to stay strong, but he could see the exhaustion catching up with her. She finally asked how he knew the armor was about to fail. Rian held up his toolkit and explained that he recognized the sound of a near meltdown. He had repaired hundreds of machines, engines, cores, and reactors. The armor was dangerous, but he had seen worse. She gave another small smile, one that was closer to relief. She told him her name, Lyra, of the Cathari Guard. Then she asked quietly why he had not left her alone and run for safety like any sensible outsider would have. She knew her armor could have exploded. She knew the crash site was unstable. She knew she wasn't exactly welcoming when he approached. Why help her? Rian's answer was simple. He said he couldn't walk away from someone who was hurt, no matter who they were. It wasn't a question. It was instinct. Lyra opened her mouth to respond, but her body suddenly went limp. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was Rian stepping forward quickly, catching her before she could fall to the metal floor. When she woke, time had passed. The scent of burning metal was gone. The air felt cooler. She slowly opened her eyes and saw a dim blue glow above her. She lay on a soft surface, made from layered emergency blankets. Someone had moved her away from the dangerous parts of the crashed shuttle. Rian sat nearby, adjusting a small energy cell. He looked up when he heard her move. He told her she had been unconscious for hours. He pointed to her side, where her wounds were wrapped neatly with medical bandages and gel. He explained that her injuries weren't too deep, but she needed rest. Lyra noticed her armor lying beside her, fully repaired. She shifted her body and stared at it. The plates were no longer cracked. The circuits were reconnected. The power core was stabilized. Her armor looked almost new. She turned toward Rian, stunned. Repairing Cathari armor required high-level specialists. No outsider had ever done it. Yet Rian had fixed it with human tools and nothing else. She wanted to ask him how, but before she could, the ground shook beneath them. A deep rumbling sound rolled across the forest like distant thunder. Lyra's expression changed instantly. She knew what it meant. The ship that attacked her was still hunting. They were scanning the crash zone, returning to finish their mission. She tried to stand, but pain shot through her leg. She clenched her teeth and grabbed the nearby wall for support. Rian immediately moved to steady her, telling her not to push herself. Lyra shook her head, insisting she couldn't stay hidden. The strike squad would destroy anyone who helped her. Rian didn't step aside. He looked directly into her eyes and told her she wasn't going anywhere in this condition. He said he wasn't letting anyone harm her. If the enemy came here, they would have to deal with him first. Lyra stared at him, confused. A human choosing to face a trained alien strike team was something she believed impossible. Humans were clever, adaptable, skilled, but not known for taking reckless risks for strangers. Yet Rian stood there, determined, without fear. As if protecting her was the only logical choice, she asked him if he understood the danger. He nodded. He understood completely. And still, he stood firm. For the first time in her warrior life, she felt something unexpected: trust. Not forced trust. Not respect born from command. But real trust, freely given. She finally nodded, accepting what he said. She told him she would not forget what he had done, or what he was willing to do. Her voice was quiet but steady, carrying a weight she rarely revealed to anyone. Rian stepped outside to strengthen the shelter walls, preparing for whatever would come next. Lyra watched him for a moment, realizing something that unsettled her more than battle. This human was not like the stories her people told. He was something different, something unpredictable, something surprisingly strong. And for the first time since the crash, she felt she was not alone. Lyra tried to stand again, but her legs refused to hold steady. The pain in her muscles rose and fell like a slow wave. Rian saw it immediately and placed a hand on her shoulder, asking her to sit. She didn't like the idea of appearing weak in front of anyone, especially a human. But she also knew she had pushed her damaged body too far already. So she sat on the blanket he had arranged for her, her back resting against a smooth piece of broken hull. The blue glow from his portable power cells lit the side of her face, making the patterns on her skin shimmer softly. Rian stepped outside the shelter again, carrying a set of small devices. Lyra followed him with her eyes, watching how he moved with quiet confidence. He didn't look like a soldier. He didn't have armor or weapons, yet the way he set down each tool, checked each panel, and planned each step told her he was someone who understood danger very well. She wondered how many crises he had survived before this one. Humans were known for adapting to anything. But watching Rian work made her realize that some humans weren't just adaptable, they were remarkably brave. She listened as he activated a sound-shifting device. A faint echo drifted into the forest, repeating the sounds of footsteps that weren't theirs. Lyra recognized the technology as human-made. Humans had a way of creating clever solutions with limited resources, turning simple metal and wires into something useful. The device would confuse enemy scanners, spreading false signals in every direction. When Rian returned inside, he noticed Lyra watching him. She asked why he had set the sound device so far away instead of closer. He smiled lightly and explained that placing it farther would lure the enemy away first, giving them additional minutes if things went wrong. He spoke calmly, but Lyra could hear the careful planning behind every word. Before he could continue, another rumble shook the ground, closer this time. Dust trickled from the broken ceiling. Lyra's heart tightened. She knew the search ship was nearing. She wanted to stand and fight, but her body still trembled. She tried to activate her repaired armor, but Rian gently held her arm. He told her not to rush. Her injuries were severe. The armor might protect her, but it would not heal her. If she forced herself to fight now, she might collapse before she could even swing her weapon. Lyra clenched her jaw and turned away, frustrated not with him but with herself. She was a Cathari guard, trained to face squads, storms, and impossible odds. Yet here she was, unable to stand without wobbling. Rian noticed her frustration. He sat beside her and told her that strength was not measured by how long she could fight without rest. He said real strength was knowing when to protect herself so she could survive. His words surprised her. No one in her training had ever spoken like that. Her people believed endurance and pride were everything. But Rian's voice had a different meaning: strength for the future, not just the moment. The search ship's scanner beams swept over the forest, glowing like faint white pillars between the trees. The beams passed dangerously close to the shelter. Lyra watched them through a small hole in the hull. She felt her pulse rise. She could almost sense their determination. The squad that attacked her had no intention of letting her escape. They were skilled trackers, and they did not fail missions. Rian waited until the scanner beams moved away. Then he stood and told Lyra he needed to prepare a few more traps. Lyra called out to him, asking if he needed help. Her voice sounded steadier this time. Rian shook his head. He told her that she was recovering and that she needed every moment of rest she could get. She opened her mouth to argue, but he had already stepped out. Alone for a moment, Lyra looked around the shelter. Rian had built it from scrap metal, broken panels, and emergency blankets. It wasn't beautiful, but it was secure. It shielded them from weather, hid heat signatures, and blocked simple scans. He had done all this while she was unconscious. She pressed her hand to the blanket beneath her and wondered how one human could have so much resourcefulness. Rian returned after a few minutes. He placed down a set of small, round discs. Lyra recognized them as human shock projectors, non-lethal but strong enough to disable someone for a minute or two. He positioned them at angles she hadn't expected, creating a pattern that didn't look strategic at first glance. But then she understood. He was mixing random placement with planned design to confuse enemy movement. His mind worked differently from what she was used to. It was almost unpredictable in a good way. He sat down beside her again, wiping dirt from his hands. Lyra leaned her head slightly, studying him. She asked how he knew so much about traps and scans. Rian gave a small smile and said humans had learned the hard way that survival didn't always depend on strength. Sometimes it depended on being smarter than danger. Lyra's eyes softened slightly. She had always seen humans as fragile but clever. Yet Rian was showing her a different side. Clever, yes, but also brave and determined. He wasn't just trying to survive. He was trying to protect someone he should have been afraid of. Another thunderous sound echoed across the forest as the search team landed. Lyra and Rian both tensed. The enemy ship settled somewhere close, shaking the ground again. Rian grabbed a compact scanner and looked at the readings. The ship had landed on the ridge above the crash site. It was a strategic position. The squad could look down on the whole area. They would search from the highest point to the lowest. Lyra pushed herself up, ignoring the pain. Rian immediately reached out to steady her. She didn't pull away. Her voice was sharp but not hostile when she told him she needed her weapon. Rian pointed to her armor, where the weapon was locked. He helped her walk to it. She leaned on him more than she wanted to admit, but he didn't comment on it. She appreciated the silence. It showed respect. She reached her weapon and gripped it tightly, but the effort made her arm shake. Rian gently placed his hand over hers and lowered the weapon again. He told her that she could barely stand. Fighting now would not protect anyone. She looked into his eyes, ready to argue, ready to remind him that she was trained for moments like these. But the exhaustion in her limbs made her stop. He wasn't wrong. She hated that he wasn't wrong. Rian activated another device, a motion scrambler. The small gadget pulsed and released subtle waves that made nearby movement signatures ripple. It would make it harder for the enemy to track exact foot positions. Lyra watched, impressed with each new idea he used. Her people valued straightforward combat honor, power, precision. But Rian used misdirection, creativity, and timing. His methods were not taught in the Cathari academies, but she could see their effectiveness. The enemy squad finally entered the forest. Lyra's heart stiffened. She recognized their marching pattern from the sound waves. They moved with discipline. Scanning everything, Rian crouched near the opening, watching them with narrowed eyes. He wasn't reckless. He was waiting for the right moment. One of the enemies moved closer to the first trap. The sound-shifting device activated, causing footsteps to echo from the opposite direction. The soldier turned instantly. Weapons raised. The squad split slightly, confused by the conflicting signals. Rian whispered to himself, counting the seconds. When the soldiers adjusted positions, the shock discs activated, releasing short bolts of light that hit two soldiers in the legs. They fell with loud thuds, shouting orders in their language. Lyra's eyes widened. She had known Ryan's traps would help, but she didn't expect them to be this effective. He had managed to confuse and disable multiple trained fighters without firing a single real weapon. She stood abruptly, adrenaline replacing the pain. Rian looked at her and shook his head, warning her not to push herself. She told him she couldn't sit still while he faced danger alone. But her legs wobbled again, and she grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Rian stepped forward with a steady gaze. He told her that she had already done more than enough. She had survived. She had trusted him. She had given him the reason to fight, and for now, just for now, she needed to let him handle the rest. Before she could answer, the enemy squad regrouped. They scanned toward the shelter. Rian pressed his finger to his lips, signaling silence. Lyra held her breath. The squad leader stepped close, his armor shining red in the faint glow of the forest. The tension rose so sharply that Lyra felt her heartbeat in her throat. Then the leader stepped over one of Rian's hidden sensors. A sudden sonic burst exploded from the device, stunning the squad leader for a second. In that moment, Rian moved like a flash. He sprinted forward, grabbed a small stun baton, and struck the nearest soldier behind the knee. The alien collapsed. Armor clattering, Rian twisted away from the next attacker, using another device to release a blinding flash. The squad staggered. Lyra stared in disbelief. She had seen humans fight before, quick, clever, sharp. But Rian moved with a mix of engineer's precision and survivor's instinct. He was unpredictable, faster than she expected, braver than she thought possible. Her heart tightened. Not out of fear, but out of shock. He was risking everything for her. A stranger. A warrior from a species that her people rarely trusted. When Rian dodged another strike and took down a third soldier, using only a sonic pulse and a metal rod, Lyra realized something she did not expect. This human was not her protector because he had to be. He was her protector because he chose to be. and that choice was more powerful than any armor she had ever worn. The forest grew darker as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the ridge. The enemy squad moved through the debris with sharp steps, trying to regroup after the confusion Rian had created. Their helmets flashed with bright red signals as they searched for the human responsible. Even injured and barely able to stand, Lyra could feel their frustration like heat in the air. Trained soldiers hated when a single opponent made them look unprepared. Rian stood in the center of the clearing, breathing hard but steady. His clothes were dirt-stained, his arms scratched, and sweat ran down the side of his face. Yet his posture remained firm, almost calm, as if he had accepted the danger but refused to fear it. Lyra watched him from the shelter, her hands gripping the metal wall, her heart pounding. Every time he dodged a strike or activated a trap, she felt the same tense pull inside her chest. She had never seen a human face a squad like this, not with strength, but with pure determination. One of the soldiers lunged at Rian from behind. Lyra tried to shout a warning, but Rian acted first. He kicked a small device lying on the ground. The device spun, activated, and released a flash of blinding white light. The soldier stumbled, unable to see. Rian swept the soldier's legs out with his metal rod, sending him crashing into a fallen tree. Another soldier approached, rifles raised. Lyra's breath caught. She knew that weapon could end a fight instantly. But Rian moved again. Rolling behind a broken piece of hull, the shot hit the metal, leaving a glowing mark. Before the soldier could fire again, one of Rian's shock discs activated beneath his foot. A burst of electricity surged upwards, and the soldier seized before falling to one knee. Rian didn't attack this one. Instead, he used a quick sonic pulse to knock him unconscious without causing serious harm. Lyra noticed that every trap, every gadget, and every strike Rian used was designed to disable, not destroy. He wasn't fighting these soldiers out of hate or a desire to harm them. He was fighting because they threatened her. That realization warmed something inside Lyra that she did not have a word for. The squad leader, bigger and more heavily armored than the rest, finally stepped forward. His voice boomed across the clearing in his native language. Lyra recognized it as an order he was telling his squad to fall back and surround the area again. He was smart enough to understand Rian's traps now. He would not fall for them twice. Lyra pushed herself away from the wall and took one difficult step forward. Her legs trembled but did not drop her. She took another step. Slow but determined. Rian glanced back when he heard the metal crunching beneath her feet. His expression told her to stay inside, but she shook her head. She could not sit and watch while he faced danger alone. She took one more step and nearly fell. Rian darted toward her instantly, catching her arm. She steadied herself with his help, her breath shaking. She told him she was coming out whether he liked it or not. She said her people did not let others bleed or fight for them while they hid. Rian's eyes softened for a moment. He understood her pride, but he also understood her injuries. He didn't argue. Instead, he moved her to a safer position. Protecting her flank, she leaned against a metal beam for support, her weapon steady in her hands even if her body wasn't. The squad leader approached slowly, his armor glowing with internal power. Lyra could feel the anger in each of his steps. He shouted at her, accusing her of betraying her people by siding with a human. His voice echoed like a blade. Lyra clenched her fists. It was not betrayal, it was survival. But the leader would never understand that. Rian stepped in front of her again, positioning himself so the leader had to face him first. He did not say anything heroic or dramatic. He simply stood like someone who refused to move. The leader charged. The impact sent dust flying everywhere. Rian dodged at the last second, rolling across the ground. The leader's armored fist smashed into the dirt, leaving a deep crater. He swung again, faster than Rian could dodge entirely, and the edge of his armored arm scraped Rian's shoulder, tearing his sleeve and drawing a thin line of blood. Lyra gasped quietly. She tried to raise her weapon, but her arms shook too violently. She bit her lower lip and forced herself to focus. Rian kept moving. Using speed instead of power, he jumped onto a fallen trunk and then leaped off it to gain height. As the leader swung upward, Rian landed behind him and struck a weak point near the enemy's armor joint. Sparks sprayed from the impact, and the leader's arm jerked for a moment. But he wasn't done. The leader turned and charged again, this time grabbing Rian by the arm. Lyra's heart jumped. She started forward, but stumbled. She could only watch in fear. The leader lifted Rian off the ground for a moment, shaking him. Rian gritted his teeth, his face tightening in pain. Before the leader could slam him into the ground, Rian pulled something from his pocket, a small black cube the size of a nail. He pressed it against the leader's chest plate. The cube activated with a soft chime. A pulse surged outward, making the leader stiffen. His armor lights flickered. Rian used the moment to twist free and roll away. The cube wasn't a weapon. It was a disruptor meant to scramble circuits for a short time. Rian had built it months ago, from leftover parts at the outpost. He never expected to use it like this. But tonight was not a normal night. The leader roared, trying to override the disruption. His steps became unstable. Despite that, he still moved toward Rian with brute strength. Rian backed up quickly, breathing harder. Lyra could see exhaustion in his movements. He had already taken down several soldiers. His limbs were slowing, his reflexes not as sharp. Lyra forced herself upright. Pain shot through her side, but she ignored it. She moved beside Rian, leaning on a metal beam with one hand. Her voice, though hoarse, carried authority. She shouted at the squad leader to stop. He ignored her, focused entirely on Rian. She lifted her weapon. Her aim wavered but steadied slowly. She told Rian to move aside. Rian glanced at her and, trusting her completely, stepped out of the way. She fired not at the leader's chest plate, which was too strong, but at the weakened point Rian had struck earlier. The light beam from her weapon hit exactly where the armor joint had cracked. Sparks burst out again, brighter this time. The leader staggered, losing balance. For a moment, everything froze. Then his knees buckled, and he collapsed to the ground with a deep metallic thud. Silence filled the clearing. Lyra lowered her weapon slowly, her hands shaking. Rian rushed to her side, placing a supportive arm behind her back before she fell. She leaned against him, breathing fast, the last of her strength draining out. The remaining enemy soldiers hesitated. With their leader down, uncertainty spread among them. They looked at the fallen body, then at Rian, then at Lyra. None of them seemed willing to continue the fight. One soldier took a cautious step backward, another followed. Finally, the entire squad retreated toward their ship, carrying their unconscious comrades and dragging their leader with them. When the search ship lifted off the ground, its engines hummed across the forest, rising higher and higher. Lyra and Rian watched it disappear above the trees. The moment it vanished, Lyra's legs gave out completely. She sank to her knees, and Rian knelt with her, supporting her gently. Her voice was soft and heavy when she finally spoke. She asked Rian why he had risked so much: his safety, his life, everything for her. Rian didn't look heroic or proud. He simply said he couldn't leave someone behind. Not when he had the chance to make a difference. He said she wasn't just a soldier in danger. She was someone who trusted him, and he couldn't break that trust. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Her chest tightened as she realized something no Kithari had ever taught her. Strength wasn't only about power, it was also about loyalty, courage, and the bravery to stand beside someone even when the world turned against you. She told Rian softly that her people might never understand what he had done, but she did. And she would carry that understanding with her for the rest of her life. Rian helped her stand and guided her back to the shelter. This time, she didn't try to hide her weakness. She allowed him to support her fully. When they reached the blankets, she sat down slowly. Rian checked her bandages again, his touch gentle. Night deepened around them. The forest was quiet again. Lyra looked at Rian, her silver eyes reflecting the blue lights of the shelter. She told him that she owed him a debt no warrior could repay. Rian shook his head and said he didn't save her for repayment. He saved her because it was the right thing to do. Lyra's expression softened into something rare, something close to admiration. She whispered that if fate allowed it, she would stand beside him again, not as someone he saved, but as someone who chose him. Rian smiled faintly, tired but relieved. He sat beside her, close enough for her to feel his warmth. Outside, the stars shone above the forest again, bright and clear, and under that quiet sky, a new bond formed one, built not from obligation or command, but from courage, trust, and the shared promise that neither would ever face danger alone again.